my children, it's time for another Mountaineer rant, and no, it's not Halloween, but it is Pit Week, when the forces of darkness and evil gather, clouds come over the mountain space of almost heaven, and Pit alumni and friends invade. Somebody said that's because God ran out of locusts.
You know, in case you didn't know, that's a rivalry of ours, and it's been a rivalry even though we haven't played them like two
Pit
times
sucks.
in the last 20 years. Yeah, they do suck. No
It
doubt.
sucks.
Yeah,
And their
there's,
coach
you
does,
know,
too.
sweet Caroline to
Yeah,
all
yeah,
you Pit
yeah,
fans
yeah.
out there.
The Backyard Brawl, for years we've been doing it. And it's been a pretty close contest.
Yeah.
And Pitt beat us last year in a close game up in Pittsburgh, within one touchdown. Could have been touch or go. It was turnovers.
On a pick six, and then we were right down to 1 yard line at the end of the game. They overruled it, but anyway, it was a very good game.
I'm excited about the rematch. And Pitt comes in ranked the number 3 team in the ACC. West Virginia comes in ranked the number 14th team.
Actually, didn't we
the Big
move up
12.
to 12 though?
We
Because
might have moved up a
Baylor
little
and Texas Tech have not won a game yet, so we're all the way up to 12. Woo, look out!
And my delight is that Cincinnati, the number 12th team in the Big 12,
Oh shoot, they're way up there now. But at preseason
went
they
in
were way
and
down.
beat Pittsburgh
In
their
Pittsburgh.
backyard last week.
What
And
they
I'm going to
call-
want to talk about that.
What they call the River City rivalry, because they used to play on a regular basis, and it's not anywhere to the stature of the Backyard Brawl, but that's the River City rivalry. Cincinnati, Pittsburgh, baseball, there was a rivalry for years, so I understand that.
I
That
watched
sucks.
that game. Pitt did not do itself well. Pitt came out not ready to play. Cincinnati was ready to play. It didn't look bad. But on the stats, if you just listen to some of the nerds on the other YouTube channels that read your stats, they'll think it was a slaughter because the stats really favored Cincinnati.
Cincinnati came out in that first half, pretty much dominated the game. They had us a couple of long runs, but they ran for over 200 yards against Pittsburgh. I mean, you can't win games when people are running for that many yards.
Let's lay the background. Cincinnati has a new coach.
Mhm.
They had a very good coach by the name of Ficknell. They had played for the national title just a year or two ago.
He's
Ficknell
gone
went
to
off to a
Wisconsin.
Big Ten team.
Yep.
So with a new coach and some players coming and going, they weren't expected to do very well. Pitt's got their same coach. Last year they finished well. They didn't finish quite as well as they were expected. I thought they lost a lot of seniors especially on a defensive line, but they returned mammoth size on their line. They've got a transfer quarterback out of Boston College who
Jerkovic is his name, number 5.
Jerkovic's a big boy, 240 pounds, I think 6'5".
Yeah, big kid.
And he was at Boston College when their offensive coordinator Signetti was up there. Signetti then went to Pitt. He's the son of the Signetti that played for West Virginia.
Frank Signetti, who coached them.
Signetti then went to Pitt. Now Jerkovic moved to, if I say that wrong, correct me.
Jerkovic, it's okay.
Jerkovic.
It's hard to say. It's hard to say.
He then went to Pitt, so he's reunited with Signetti, but he had a bad game. Let's talk about some of the bad stuff. The Pitt lines were awful. The Pitt offensive line, which is supposed to be tough, allowed 216 yards of Cincinnati rushing.
Now let me say this: they were much better in the second half of that game.
They were.
And that's where your statistics.
That's where the stats got hot.
disparity comes from.
But Cincinnati scored 20 points in the first half, only 7 in the second half, so it got better.
And that was on the turnover. They got a short field on the turnover from Pittsburgh too. But that's go ahead.
On the line play, I'll also suggest that what I saw was a Cincinnati team that was faster. And they ran around the line, or they ran through the tackle slot and then cut to the outside. I think if you go right at them, you might have some problems. Although Cincinnati had one draw play for a touchdown right up the middle.
It was a long run. Yeah.
But Cincinnati was clearly faster. So the line play on the defensive line didn't match up.
Now, did Pitt take Cincinnati a little bit too lightly, their home opener, and they didn't think they were very good, and maybe that's why they got themselves in a hole in that first half?
No question
Possibly,
in my mind.
but they're not going to do that this week. They're going to be ready to play this week.
but I want to keep pounding on Pitt.
Well, go
Pitt-
ahead. I like that.
Offense, they've got a couple of running backs that they're highly touted. They've got a good variety of running backs. They only rushed for 83 yards, and they've got an offensive line that averages like 6'4", 6'5", and 300 plus pounds. So they're supposed to move people around. Cincinnati was stopping them, and once they fell behind, they had to go to that quarterback to throw passes. Well, the quarterback was sacked 5 times by Cincinnati.
Yep.
This is in Pittsburgh, and he had a little more passing yardage than Cincinnati did, 179 to 155. His passes were deep. Now I'll give him this. I thought he was pretty accurate when he threw the ball. I thought the Cincinnati defenders were playing tight on the receivers, and they were pushing the receivers around even when they got the ball in their hands. A couple of times it would have been a catch, but for the fact that the defender was smacking him around. He dropped the ball and they'd call it incomplete.
Our secondary could learn a little bit from that.
That's exactly where I was going with that. Our secondary needs to be tight and needs to keep hand slapping them, because they will drop the ball. But they like to throw it deep. Now, he doesn't have a record for throwing it well deep. He's only 3 for 16 of the 20-yard and longer passes, but he can throw it deep, and he can run as big as he is.
He's big and strong, and he can run.
Coach Brown's concerned that if he gets back there and can't find an open man and runs, he's a lot bigger than some of our defensive backs. Might be tough to bring him down.
Well, then the play breaks down, and then people break open, and he can hit them. He can throw the ball. He's got a big arm. He can throw the ball a long way.
There weren't a lot of turnovers or penalties in that game. It was roughly the equal time of possession, but I think that quarterback in his post-game interview was saying he was taking the blame, and he was saying he didn't trust his plays. In other words, he was waiting for his receivers to be open, and that's why he was getting sacked, instead of trusting where they were supposed to be. He promised he was going to do better.
One of the things I will say that about him is that he didn't throw the ball up for grabs. He didn't make the mistake and throw the interception. He didn't panic in that game.
He hadn't got any interceptions. Right. They beat up Wolford the week before. Pretty bad the week before. And he threw a lot of passes. They just churned it up.
Yeah.
And I think that leads into what you were saying. I think they came into this game, said it's a home opener. Cincinnati, they're no good. I think they relaxed just enough that an aggressive Cincinnati team ended up beating them.
Cincinnati was better than what they thought. They tried their hardest to come back. They tightened up on their defense in the second half. They put some points on the board, but they couldn't make the plays to win the game at the end. The thing that worries me about them is they do a running back kind of by committee. We kind of rely on C.J. Donaldson a lot, although we got more people playing time in the Duquesne. But they got this number 4 Carter, who's probably their top runner, Flemster, number 24, and Hammond, number 6. Now, I thought Hammond last year was one of the ones that kind of burned us a little bit, because they were all excited about Anabanakanda, and he's gone. But this guy, Hammond, ran hard against us, and we couldn't tackle. He hadn't carried the ball as much as the other two. He has scored a couple of touchdowns, though.
If you remember the game last year, they would go to run the ball, and they would just bull us out of the way.
They did beat us on the
Our linebackers would come up, and they'd just push them back and keep on going.
And once they got into the secondary, we did not tackle.
We didn't tackle. We didn't have the size.
We're going to do better tackling.
And that's what they want to do. They want to be physical. They want to keep it on the ground. They don't want to fall behind and start to throw the ball. That's what they're going to do. Now, there's one other quirk on this. Each of the teams punted 5 times in that game. That's a ball control game.
Yeah.
Our Mountaineers went for it on 4th down 5 times last week and 6 times the week before. Yeah. So we're a little more. That's that vanilla offense that doesn't take risks.
Hey, one thing you need to worry about them is their tight end. That kid Bartholomew he's only caught 5 passes, but he's their leading receiver in yardage. He has scored a touchdown. He's big and tall and can catch the ball. And we traditionally have trouble with tight ends, as most everybody does. Big guys that can run routes and catch the ball. And then they got another wide receiver, Mumfield, number 9, who's caught a couple of touchdowns this year. He's a good player. I remember him from last year too. They can throw it. Again, their big drawback in this game against Cincinnati was their line play wasn't good.
Their line play wasn't enough,
that
and
bodes
Cincinnati
well.
had the speed.
Yeah, that bodes well for us because I believe we have shown some really good line play.
It's
for
just
a game and a half, or a
It's
game
just
and 3 quarters.
it's when you see us. I
Right.
mean, if Pitt took a half off playing line and we took a quarter and most of a quarter off, we don't have a good judge.
Right.
Who will show up to play line and who will play secondary is what's going to
And
matter.
see, that leads me to the next point, which is a great segue. This is the first true Saturday night game in Mountaineer Field at 7:30, because we've had some 6s and some 5 since 2016. Now, we've had one that was scheduled before, I think Oklahoma, but they canceled it, that COVID or whatever. So Brown has never played a night game as a coach. He's never coached a night game in Mountaineer Field, so he's excited about that. It is on ABC, it's on national television. There's no problem getting your team ready to play for this game. So I don't believe we will see a problem as far as motivation.
Pitt's
You
not
might
gonna
see
lay
more
down.
problem with errors, nervousness, and too excited, and that worries me about Garrett Green a little bit.
Garrett Green's. Well, I've got a negative and a positive here. The negative is there's a lot riding on this game.
Yeah, it is.
There's a lot of bollards out there that are mad about the coaching staff, and they're looking to this game as pivotal, because if we can knock off the third best team in the ACC, we're not a cellar dweller like they're saying we are. We ought to at least do what Cincinnati did, especially at home.
And it's almost worse the fact that they lost last week, because they've come in with something to prove. They'll come in fired up, ready to win this game.
And beating them won't get us as much credit now,
because they
lost to Cincinnati
at home.
Yeah, but the plus is, I think Mr. Brown's got something up his sleeve. He said in his press conference that he had some adjustments that he was going to put in after the Penn State game, but he didn't put them in against Duquesne.
He's not going
He
to.
said he didn't want to put them on film. Now,
Play it bland.
of course, we can only guess what that might be. He was talking about his defensive backs playing tighter. They also said some are going to sit and not get as many rounds.
Promotions and demotions. That's were the words I heard from Brown and Leslie both. And that's okay with me. They're not getting the job done. Somebody else might not either, but at least give them a shot. That's where I'm saying.
We need to knock off Pitt.
They got a couple of ball players on their defense. There's the kid named Hayes, number 50. Remember, if you don't know if you know this, but they were the best pass rushing team in the country last year.
They had the most sacks.
They had more sacks than anybody else. And this kid Hayes is back too, number 50. He makes a lot of sacks, and they are going to try to heat us up. They're going to try to put pressure on Green and try to force mistakes. So our way to beat them is to control the ball. I mean, I sound like a broken record, I know, but I want to run it and control it and sprinkle in a few passes.
Well, they're going to blitz a lot, and they're going to try and shake you up. A blitz will force you to throw a quick pass, and that means Green has to find the open man or run.
And you got to take off running.
I think if he can take... I don't have the respect for the Pitt linebackers that I did for the Penn State
Not
linebackers.
even close.
And if that blitz gets past Green and he gets into the field, he can break a long one. That's the positive spin.
You know, if you go back and watch Penn State, and maybe you don't analyze it as much as I do, when you watch Penn State rush the passer, even when they blitzed, they stayed in their rush lanes, and what I mean by that is they didn't try to get around their guy going 3 or 4 yards around them. They stayed right forward, straight with, and what that did is prevented Garrett Green from taking off and running. I don't think Pittsburgh will do that. I think they get so excited about going to get a sack that they'll do whatever they can, and that will open up places for Garrett Green to run the ball on, not designed, I'm talking on scrambles. But we'll see. I want to see us run the ball at them. I don't think their linebackers are very good. I think we can beat them at the line of scrimmage, and I think we will run the ball down their throat.
You've been optimistic about this. The voters are saying that it's a very close game, point and a half, or a toss-up. I could easily see us get clobbered, and I could easily see us beat them bad. It just depends on the team that shows up.
They're going to come ready to play. So we better be prepared for that. And if we're not, then they will beat us. If they jump out on us early, then I don't know that we will come back and beat them.
We're lapsing into cliches. now.
Well, we've got to be ready to play. It's just that simple. But
I don't think they have the speed. I don't think this Pitt team is as good as the Pitt team was last year.
I agree.
I think the West Virginia team this year is better than last year. I think we got them at home. I think if Garrett Green can throw the ball downfield and make a connection, I don't think we need a thunderstorm. I think we can beat Pitt.
We better not.
But we need to make sure we beat them on the line, because the Pitt line's going to be substantially better than Duquesne.
Well, it all happens pretty soon.
Pretty soon.
West Virginia, Pittsburgh, Backyard Brawl, Saturday night, ABC National Television, 7:30. Can't wait to watch it. Be with us and we'll bring you the review next week. Thank you for watching.
Sweet Caroline, my ass.